ready to have some fun with layered embossing and glitter? This is Beverly Cole. Let's get started. We're going to make this beautiful card, and we're going to use a technique that I kind of came across by accident. I thought I was using 2 embossing powders. Turned out I was using embossing powder and glitter, but it worked with this technique. We're going to use my stamp set called Rose Heart. It's a layered stamp set, and I'm so excited about this set. You can use the sentiments as stems. We're going to start with a piece of cardstock. This measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to use my anti-static bag. Make sure that we don't have any embossing powder sticking where we don't want it. And I'm really inking up my solid heart stamp here really well. My Versamark pad is getting a little old. I've re-inked it several times, but I really need to get a new one. So we get a really nice image. I pressed really hard so that I would get a really good solid stamp. And I'm using Platinum Detail embossing powder. Now we'll heat set this. Make sure you get every spot. Looks good. Now for the next layer of our layered stamp, I just love this stamp set. It layers very easily. You just match the edges. Our stamps are cut nice and close, so you can get a really good match. And if it's a little off, it just looks artsy. So again, inking it up well with the Versamark, lining it up. I can see I didn't get it perfect, but close enough. If I put my head right over it and you couldn't see it, I probably would have got a better match, but whatever. Okay, so this is Sonic Silver microfine glitter. I thought it was embossing powder. Now I'm heat setting it from underneath. Just thought I'd give it a try. And you can actually see how it embeds itself into the embossing powder. It's embedding itself. That's glitter. Yeah, one little final step. And there we go. It's so pretty. I wish you could see it in real life. When you make one, you're going to be really happy with this. So let's just clean up this glitter a little bit. Get it out of the way, off the glass mat. I try to clean as I go. And look at that. It doesn't come off. The glitter is embedded into that embossing powder with no glue. Now we're going to move on to the background. And this is the line stamp. This is the 3rd layer of the heart. And I'm using, again, my static free bag. And stamping across the card, trying not to hit my embossed and glitter image. If I did, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I would just need to wipe off the embossing powder when I sprinkle it on, make sure it's not on the heart. And I end up doing that anyway, so we're just, as you can see, filling in the background as much as I can with the heart. And it doesn't take long. Okay, now I'm going to use some black embossing powder. Oops, wait, one more step. I forgot the stem. Now here we go. My stamp isn't sitting on the block the way I want it to. It's falling off, even though I cleaned it. So what's that trick? Heat the back of the stamp with your heat tool. This is a light stamp. Just a bit, and it will stick to the block. Much easier. There we go. Ink it up. There we go. It's not falling off now. Yay. I'm checking to make sure I've got the right end of my stamp where I want it, and I stamp it as a stem. It's very subtle, but that's how I want it. Believe it or not, this is going to make a great masculine Valentine. You know, men, they don't like it too mushy. They love to buy us the mushy ones. At least my husband does. He always buys me a big card, and I tell him, don't buy cards. I make them. But he doesn't care. He loves me, and he loves to get me the biggest, mushiest card he can find. And I save them. Okay, so here we are, and you can see that some of the embossing powder has indeed landed on that heart. And there's a few little spots where it's sticking, where my fingers might have touched while I was working. So I'm just going to take a little brush, and I'm brushing loose that embossing powder that's kind of sitting in the creases of my rose. There. A little more here and there. Okay, it doesn't really matter if there's a little extra here and there. It's an artsy background and it's really cool. Okay, so heat set it, and there we go. Look at that. Okay, next step. I'm going to put the lines on our embedded glitter heart. I'm just cooling it off. I want to make sure everything's cool. And now I'm going to use my anti-static pillow again. And here we're going to put the lines on our heart. The reason I'm doing this last is, as you could see, how that embossing powder sat in that heart. And I didn't want to have to deal with that and the background at the same time. So I'm doing this first. Last. You could do it first. It doesn't matter, as long as you do it separate from your background. And there, you can see the lines. It's a little off again, but who's going to care? When this card is done, it's beautiful. I'm going to heat set that. Don't you love seeing the back of my heat tool? There we go. Okay. I think this was pretty even without those lines, so you could do it either way. A little cleanup, and here we have our card ready. I'm going to put it aside, and we're going to work on our sentiment. This is a piece of gray cardstock, and again I'm using the Platinum Detail embossing powder and Versamark. Really need a new Versamark pad. I'm going to stamp it a couple of times. I always do that just in case I mess up one, either with the stamping or the embossing or the cutting. Just saves me a little time. It's easy. It's just as easy to do two as it is to do one at this point. Dump that on, that Platinum Detail, tap it off. Just get all that extra off by flipping it around, and now we're going to heat set this. And this is really lovely on the gray. Very subtle, and I think very masculine. Now I took that to my die cut machine, cut it out, and put it aside, and I'm putting some tape on the edges of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of white cardstock. This is Tear-ific tape, and I'm using a 1/2 inch. Even though it's going to be a 1/4 inch that you'll see, because I'm going to have the middle piece raised up, I want the glitter to go a bit underneath my middle card. So I'm using the 1/2 inch tape. Just rub it on there. And trim off the edges. And I save all my little pieces to use later. They're just sitting on the edge of my glass mat. And these are my large Tim Holtz scissors. Great for straight lines, trimming. Great for a lot of things. And now the Sonic Silver Microfine Glitter again. And I'm burnishing it in with my finger. This is such a fun technique. Really, it's almost Zen-like. I'm just rubbing it in. It's fun. Tap it off. Use my handy dandy glitter brush to brush it off. And I'm even able to take the leftover in there and rub that in. So much fun. Tap, tap, tap. Brush it off, and there is my background. That easy. Okay. And here's the finished card.